Welcome to the Q1 Buck Poll. I'm Tim Hart with Mike Big Buck Hoffner. Well, we have been partying with hunters from all over the state. We've been hearing some great stories. And on today's show, we're going to hear some stories from the Grand Rapids area.
Well, I'll tell you what, no matter where you go, the passion runs through when you start talking about big bucks.
Today we've got Randy Lauk, and he's the number 2 buck in the Grand Rapids area. We've got Joy Hudson, the number 3 buck. It's a big 11-pointer. We're going to be cooking up some great venison root vegetable pasty, and that's going to be with Betty Garrett, our chef from the Soaring Eagle today.
All right, well, let's go on and let's get on with it, Tim.
All right, we've got all that and more, plus Big Buck Hoffner's going to have some bucks here. We're going to talk about prizes and other prize parties coming up. Stay with us. You're watching the Q1 Buck Poll.
The Q1 Buck Poll is sponsored by these participating businesses who support the great outdoors in Michigan.
Back here on the Q1 Buck Poll, and some of the prizes we're giving away this year are these Mayhem arrows from Carbon Express. We've got dart and crossbows. We've got CVA muzzleloaders. And then the final prize we're giving away this year is the ATV from Custom Connection Motorsports in Battle Creek.
Well, that happens to be, you're showing these arrows. These are the arrows I used. Magnificent.
And you're going to take a deer this year, right?
Well, yes. I think this year we laid off the EHD. I can use the EHD as my excuse this year.
All right. Well, these people that he's going to show you had no excuse because they got bucks. Here's Big Buck Hoffner with our featured bucks of the day.
Let's start out with Bruce McGuire from Morley with a 9-pointer. His score was 42. Nick Tucker from Midland, Michigan brought in an 8-pointer. The score 41.5. Carl Albert from Coldwater brings in a 9-pointer, the score 41.5, and Ken Leach from LaSalle with a 10-pointer, the score 40.75.
All right, now it's off to Grand Rapids, and we're going to hear from Randy Lauk and Joy Hudson about their successful hunts this year.
I shot this about on the third night, probably 10 to 15 minutes before he shot. And I wasn't sure I got him. It was a long shot. He was 250 across the field, and then 50 or so into a woods that they cut off a couple times. And there was tree tops, and it was nasty. And when I first seen him, I had my plexiglass in my windows, and they were kind of scratched up. And I was looking over there about 275, and this deer was facing me with this thing on its head that looked huge, you know. And I go, the first thing I went, oh, you got to get some help. You're fantasizing. and I just reached for my binoculars. I didn't hurry. I reached and grabbed them and put them on. And when I did, then windows started coming out of that thing, and I was shaking and trying to pull myself together, basically. And he was with a doe, tedded a doe, and they were just kind of milling around in there in the treetops. And I'm like, oh man, he's never going to come out. Is he going to give me a shot? So I'm starting looking through the woods, and I see a spot about 3 foot wide. And I said, well, if they walk into that, that's it. You know, it's going to be 300 yards. And I'm trying to calm myself down. You know, you got to realize, hearts have eaten. And finally, the doe walked into it, and she turned to go away, and he walked right up behind her and just stood there. And I go, it's now or never, you know. And I prayed, and I said, God, help me make this. And I calmed down as much as I could, and I pulled the trigger, and about that far away, I didn't hear the bullet hit or nothing. The gun jarred me so hard, and then nothing. It was, you know, dead quiet that night anyway, so.
You didn't hear any thrashing or anything?
No, not that far away. And put my binoculars up, looking, and all that thick stuff, couldn't see nothing. I said, oh no. So I sat there, and like I say, 10 minutes later, I hear Anthony shoot on the other side of the road.
Yeah!
I go, oh no. I called on the phone, and I said, was that you that shot? And he goes, yeah. I says, which way did that deer come from? And he goes, the back. And I said, you get him? He goes, yeah, I think so. I said, okay, bye. So I knew it didn't come across from the road. It had to come across the road. So I hung up real quick, and I go, there's hope. So I sat there probably for about a half an hour, and finally it was getting towards dark, and well, I got to go look, you know, I can't take it no more. And I walk over there and I get to the edge of the woods, and it was really quiet that night. It was just dead calm. And I started walking the oak leaves, and I took a few steps, and I heard ka-hoom, ka-hoom, ka-hoom. And it stopped, and it blew at me, and I go, well, that's the doe, but that's only one deer. And I'm kind of, well, maybe. And I took a few more steps. She took off again, and she stopped. She blew twice, and I go, that's only one deer. And I took one more step, and I could smell him. And then I just started grinning, and I think a tear was running down my eye, and it was getting dark, and I'm just wandering that way where I could smell him, you know, and I'm looking, and I'm, where are you? And his back was towards me, and he was light colored like the oak leaves, and when I stopped, he was right there. There was them antlers, and I just had my gun, and I set it down, was holding it, and I just started crying.
I went hunting on public land that morning. And then a friend came along up to some friends of mine that when we got back off the public land, and he said, well, why don't we go over on my brother's property, because he's not hunting it right now. So we go over there, and he puts me in a blind, and he takes off, and he told me to look one way, and I looked the other way, and then that's when I seen the buck down in the swamp. And it was across the cornfield where I seen him, about 150 yards actually. And he must have been laying there, because he popped up, and all I seen was horns, and he was rubbing his head on a tree there, and then I pulled up my gun and shot, and I didn't even know that I hit him, and I waited for a few minutes, and then I ran down there, no blood, so I ran back to the blind.
What'd you think?
I didn't know what to think, but it was getting just before dark, and I didn't want to be down in that swamp. So I ran back to the blind and waited for my other the hunting partner of mine to come and get me. And we go down there, and our flashlights wouldn't work. So we ran back to the truck, no flashlights, so we had to wait until the next morning. It just got too dark. And then we found them about 9 o'clock the next morning.
Great bucks, great stories, and we'll have more coming up in the next few episodes here on the Q1 Buck Poll. And you can see all of the shows at q1buckpoll.com. And you know, Mike, coming up, we've got parties up in Jackson, we've got them in Lansing, we've got them all over the state, and we're looking forward to meeting the hunters.
And we're getting ever so closely to that grand prize party.
Stay with us. When we come back, we're off to the Soaring Eagle with our chef, Betty Garrett. You're watching the Q1 Buck Poll. Time now for our sponsor spotlight. We're at Camel Creek Hydrographics in Brighton. Kevin Target is with us. Kevin.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, we're talking about dipped skulls and all kinds of materials to be dipped here at Camel Creek Hydrographics. Tell me about the process of dipping a skull.
Sure. What we do, Tim, is either a customer will bring us a skull that's already been cleaned and ready to go, or they can bring us one that we'll beetle clean it for them. So you can bring us a whole head, frozen or fresh. We'll take it and we'll skin it out. We'll put it through the beetling process. The beetles will go through, they eat all the flesh, cartilage, anything you can think of that's in there. They take care of everything for us. Once they're done with it, we put it through a sanitizing process. So we kill any bacteria, any foul odors, anything like that is eliminated. Then we paint it, put it through their dipping process, let them dry out for a day or two, then we clear coat them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we take a look, there's all different types of patterns to take a look at. You know, here we've got kind of an orangish pattern. We've got the white looking pattern here. So you've got all different types of colors to choose from.
Oh, sure. We've got probably about 20 patterns total. We've probably got a key 6 patterns that are probably our most popular that people like, but we can put it on anything. We've got other patterns besides those also, but like the gun stocks here, we can do the gun stocks, archery equipment, we can put it on just about anything. We can't do a complete firearm at this time due to a change in the law, but we just moved to a new location with proper zoning, so we're applying for our federal firearms license right now so we can hopefully start doing complete firearms again shortly.
All right, so if you need a bow dipped, you need a skull dipped, you need a mailbox dipped, whatever the case is,
Sure.
You guys can take care of them. And they can see a lot of your work online too, right?
Sure. You can check out our website, or you can check us out on our Facebook page. We've got a little bit more current stuff on there until we redo the website. And on the website also, we'll have all the new patterns on there. Hopefully by the first of the year, we've got a new distributor we're working with. So a lot of the patterns you see here are some of them from the new distributor. So.
All right, check them out. Camel Creek Hydrographics in Brighton. Our sponsor spotlight today. Kevin, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, I'm Tim Hart, and you're watching the Q1 Buck Poll. Back here on the Q1 Buck Poll. Well, before we go to the Soaring Eagle and do some cooking with Chef Betty Garrett, Big Buck Hoffner's got some bucks.
Well, we've got bucks. Let's start out with David Hines from Jackson, Michigan, bringing in a 9-pointer, the score 40.5. Taylor Morris from Charlotte brought a 10-pointer in. His score was 39 3/4. And Robert Lemson from Cedar Springs with a 10-pointer. The score 39 1/2.
All right, now it's off to the Soaring Eagle, Part 1, venison root vegetable pasty with Chef Betty Garrett. We're at the Soaring Eagle cooking up some delicious venison today. Betty Garrett is our chef. Betty, what are we going to make today?
We're going to make a venison pasty with a sweet potato crust and some Marsala morel mushrooms.
Ooh, it sounds like a great combination. Now, what part of the venison are we going to use?
We're going to use the shoulder.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so what are we going to start with?
We're going to start with the sweet potato crust.
Okay.
Very easy recipe. We have flour that we're going to add all our dry ingredients to. We have a 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme. And we're going to mix that up really well. After that's all mixed together, I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of cut butter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just mix that into the dough.
And that's good to kind of cut that up into little pieces like you did.
Yeah, it just
makes it easier to mix.
Yeah, makes it easier to cut into there. We want a nice coarse crumbly dough when we're done. Once that butter is mixed in and incorporated really well, get a nice coarse crumbly texture. Then I'm going to take a cup of sweet potatoes that have been smashed and add those in there.
All right.
And this is the fun part of cooking.
Yeah, it's the messy part.
It is.
You know
This
what?
is the-
You
yeah.
can get your kids to help you do this.
Absolutely.
You know, you can put all this stuff in, get one of your kids and say, here, do that, put some gloves on now.
Yep.
I'll tell you. All right, so we're going to mix this all up. And then when it's all mixed up, then where do we go? To the stove or?
This actually, once this is mixed up, we're doing this first because it's got to chill for about
Okay.
an hour and a half. Or you can actually do this and put it in the fridge overnight and then just pull it out the next day when you're ready.
All right. All right, so you've got it all pretty well mixed up.
Yep.
You're going to kind of form it. Is that what you're going to
Yep.
do?
So we're just going to kind of pat it out into a ball, nice flat little disc, and then cover that and just put it in
All right,
the
let's
refrigerator.
Let's pull that out and show them what that looks like. There you go. So to make sure you know all the details here. All right, so then we're going to take that and then put it in the fridge or
Yep.
cooler or so?
Yep. Put it in the
right.
fridge for at least a couple hours or overnight if you prefer.
Okay.
Have a cup of diced turnips, a cup of diced sweet potatoes, a cup of diced rutabagas, about a cup of diced onion, about a cup of diced celery, about a pound of diced venison shoulder. We have a little granulated garlic, about 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire, about a teaspoon of thyme, 1 bay leaf. Altogether, we're going to use about 6 tablespoons of butter, about a cup of red wine, and here we have about a 1/2 cup of brown roux, and then a little salt and pepper to taste.
Okay, what are we going to do next?
We're going to take these first 3 ingredients, our sweet potatoes, rutabagas, turnips. We're going to toss them in a little bit of melted butter and a little sprinkle of salt and pepper. Okay, and we're just going to toss those together. And we're going to put those in the oven. What that's going to do is that it's going to bring out some of the natural sweetness in these root vegetables.
Now, are rutabagas and that sort of thing, are they kind of sweet? I mean, you got a nice little mix here.
Yes, they can be. They're nice and savory, but when you roast them, it brings out a little more of the natural sweetness in them.
Okay, so this is going to go, you're going to cover it and put it in the oven?
I'm actually going to put it on this tray here,
Okay.
and we're going to roast those off until
Oh,
they get
just
just
kinda
a little
laying
bit
them
of
all out then.
Yep, a little bit of brown color to them.
All right.
So that's going to take maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, we've got that in the oven. Next step is we're going to the stove.
Yep.
And we're just going to dump everything in.
One by one. It's a process.
I like to just like this. How about that? Well, we know that the cook is in charge here, so we're going to let the chef do it, all right? All right, Betty, now we're going to the stove. What are we going to do first
Yes,
here?
we're going to put in some butter. We're gonna let that melt.
You know, one of the things I noticed here cooking at the Soaring Eagle, you guys use lots of butter, don't you?
Well, butter is one of those comfort foods from home, you know? Just, it makes you feel good. Okay, add our butter, and then we're gonna put in our onions and celery, and a little salt and pepper.
You're just going to kind of mix that up is what you're going to do?
Yep, I just want to mix that up, make sure that they're coated with that butter. And then we're going to let them get just a little bit of color on them. We're going to let them sweat a little. Let those onions start to get a little clear.
Now, when you talk about them sweating a little, what do you mean?
It's actually going to like sear the outside of them, and they're going to give off some of their own juices, which is then going to add to the complexity of the flavor of the broth that we're going to make for the venison stew. All right, these are almost done, but these are done, so we're going to take our root vegetables out of the oven. They have a little color on them. We're going to add those to the stew at a little later point. See a little brownness there. Nice color, just adds a little sweetness to them. Next, we're going to add our red wine. We're just going to deglaze with red wines, with our cup of red wine.
And can it be any kind of red wine? Marsala is the best?
Yep, we're using a Burgundy for this, or if you prefer a different kind of wine, you could use, you know, whatever you prefer.
And it's really just to add another little touch of flavor to this whole thing.
Yeah, it is. It's to add more complexity to the flavor of the broth that we're making. Also releases some flavors in those in the mirepoix and the onions and celery that you wouldn't ordinarily get.
And then how long will you leave this on the stove?
I'm actually just looking at it to see when it's almost dry. Then I'm going to add the venison and sear that. Okay, now that our red wine is reduced, it's almost dry, we are going to add our venison and allow the outsides of that to sear.
And all you're doing is just trying to brown the venison a little bit?
Yep, just try to brown it. We're also trying to get all that juice that's on the inside to stay in there and cook in there.
We will have part 2 and 3 in the next few weeks. And again, you can catch the whole episode online at q1buckpole.com. When we come back, we've got more stories from the Grand Rapids area, including the #1 buck there, Andy Morris's 17-pointer. Stay with us. You're watching the Q1 Buck Pole. Back here on the Q1 Buck Pole, again, Tim Hart and Mike Big Buck Hoffner. Well, at our regional prize parties and also our final prize party coming up March 2nd at the Soaring Eagle Casino, some of the prizes we give away include from Carbon Express, Mayhem arrows. And I will tell you this, Mike, you use them, I use them. They are awesome.
Yeah, I think they're great arrows. And in addition to the arrows, behind us we've got a great tree stand from Gorilla. And remember, it was the Gorilla tree stand harnesses that saved your life last year. So we thank them for that.
Yes, it was. Them and Big Buck Hoffner. Well, before we get to some stories from the Grand Rapids area, including the #1 buck, it's time to feature some of the other bucks from around the state.
Let's start out with Jack Flanagan from Attica with a 9-pointer, the score 39. Joseph Smith from Birch Run brings in an 8-pointer. His score was 38 1/4. And Julie French from St. John's brings in an 8-pointer. The score was 37 3/4.
We have all kinds of stories, including the #1 buck story from the Grand Rapids area, Andy Morse and his 17-pointer.
I saw the rack and I'm like, you know what? There's no way I'm gonna risk, just shooting.
Right.
I mean, that's not me. And I knew that I owed it to this animal to make a good clean shot. So I waited, and 40 yards, he's gone. He's up in the woods, he's gone forever. I got my grunt call in my left hand, my rifle in my right, and I'm just sitting there looking at it. I'm like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Do I grunt? Is he gonna freak out? What's gonna happen? All these things are going through your mind at split second intervals. And I said to myself, you know what? If God wants me to have this deer, He's gonna give me this deer. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. He walked right out into the middle of that food plot and about 120 yards and stopped.
Chamber was closed.
It was
All right.
closed. Took the safety off, put it right behind his front shoulders, and gave him a meh. He looked up, and 75 yards, double long, walked up on it with my father. That was, I cried too, and I'm gonna have a hard time not doing the same right now. But
Well, I will tell you.
it was an amazing experience, and the reason I have this deer is God gave me this gift. Plain and simple. I was out doing something that I love and that we all love, and I just got lucky, I'm nothing special. I'm just in it for the love of the game, man.
Great stories, and we look forward to talking to hunters from around the state at our upcoming prize parties. Go online to q1buckpole.com. At the top of the page, you can click on prize parties and see where we're going to be next. But if you're going to the Soaring Eagle on March 2nd, make sure you book your room now.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I talked to some people just this week that says, I've got to call and make my reservation.
All right, some of the prizes again. The Dart and Crossbow, it's a Terminator. We've got arrows from Carbon Express, tree stands from Gorilla. We're going to have all kinds of raffles and prizes to give away, so make sure you attend the regional and the final prize party. For Mike Big Buck Hoffner, I'm Tim Hart. Thanks for watching this week's edition of the Q1 Buck Poll. Remember, whenever you're out in the woods, stay safe.
What's wrong with you?
I have a head cold. 2.
There, shake the cobwebs out.
Hi, welcome to the Q1 Buck Poll.
I
I'm
got
Tim
the-
Hart,
The
and you're Big Buck
cobwebs are
Hoffner.
out. Get with it. What you talking about, Willis?
Shut your mouth.
Cardin
See-
Express? What's Cardin Express?
I can't tell you that because you can't
Top
tell you
secret
that.
information.
Top secret.